Hello and welcome to Hops and Bros. This week we're going to be looking at some off flavors in beer. Mainly
Diacetyl. It's the thing that we haven't taught yet. It's like the dark side of beer, Max, right?
it's that popcorn, man. It's that popcorn.
So we're talking about popcorn this week.
For an open window on the crowded world, Max and Chris from Ups and Brew. Welcome to Ups and Bros. Yeah.
Are we both drinking Wellington Brewery beers?
I think we might be. I'm drinking this one over here. Is that yours?
I'm drinking
Nice. It's a...
Tri-Latte one.
Oh!
Yeah, really cool.
How is it? Man, we've talked about Wellington in a couple of videos now. Hopefully it gets to their ears.
Yeah, you guys got the shout out, right?
And it's purely by accident. It's just like right now, that's what I have in my fridge. I'm really happy because I love these guys and I love this beer. It's a very easy drinking Helles lager. It's awesome.
It's perfect. And this is really nice. I know we're doing another shout out for Wellington Brewery, but this one, 25 cents for every bottles goes to Wellington Woman in Crisis. And it's brewed with a group of fantastic women at the same time, which is, sorry, I forgot the name, Queen of Craft Crew.
Yeah, I believe they had a post on their Instagram recently about this whole thing, which was really nice. It's fun to see breweries getting a little more involved in their community and in things that are bigger than just beer. Because let's not kid ourselves, beer is kind of ridiculous on itself. It's this weird thing. I get to brew beer every day. What's this? It just doesn't make any sense. It's very whimsical, which I consider myself a very whimsical person.
You're so whimsy, Max. Speaking of whimsy, Diacetyl. What a whimsy word.
All right, so this week we're going to invert things a little bit. I'll explain to you what diacetyl is. Then Chris is going to go to talk a little more about where we find it. So diacetyl is there's two reasons why you would have that off flavor in beer or off aroma as well, because it is very potent in the aroma. It could be a microorganism, an infection of some sort, or more likely than not, it's a yeast problem. And I say problem in the sense that it's very, very fixable. And it's something that a lot of breweries are not doing, but they should be doing, is actually doing diacetyl tests before canning or even before cold crashing their fermenters. So here's how diacetyl works. I'll take a sip of beer before I get into this because I'm going to be talking for a couple seconds there consecutively, and I need something to.
So while Max takes a sip and
quench my thirst,
quench your thirst, go drop the knowledge right now for all our fantastic viewers.
All right, so the way that yeast functions in general is they will transform sugars into a couple different things, mainly CO2 and alcohol, or ethanol more likely. Now, the way it does that is it goes into glycosis. So it's going to take those glycogen cells. If it can't break down into glycogen, they're going to break down the organism. So say you have something that's like maltose, which is two glycogen ions or whatever. They will break that in half so that they can have one glycogen, which is just very easy for them to digest and to transform into whatever they need. The way they do that is they go into glycosis. Now, in glycosis, they will transform those sugars into a bunch of different things they need, and one of the things is pyruvate. So pyruvate is what is going to create your acetaldehyde, which is your ethanol, which will be transformed into ethanol later on, and your CO2. Now, another thing that pyruvate will do is, and now I'm going to have to cheat, acetolactate. It's going to transform itself into acetolactate at some point as well. Now, acetolactate, just like that, doesn't really mean anything. In the cell, it's pretty fine. It's pretty contained. Not going to produce any off flavors. But as soon as it's expelled from the cell, it will quickly be transformed into diacetyl. Now, that's where it's very important to actually test your beer to see if it's actually ready to be cold crashed, if it's actually ready to be, transferred to your bright tank. Because if your cell hasn't had time to take that diacetyl and bring it back inside of itself, transform it to whatever it needs again, and then drop out a solution once you cold crash, you're going to get diacetyl. So your beer, as soon as you can it, question?
No, I just, you made it so simple in the end. If you do cold crash
I
or
made
finish.
it very simple.
Yeah, you made it so simple. Like for a normal human like me that only read, you guys can't complain about we didn't step up our game. Seriously, we sent one guy out to school so we don't have to read Wikipedia anymore. But
Yeah, it's and anyway, it's kind of a complicated thing. I'm trying to dumb it down as much as I can. And I'm not a science guy at all,
Oh, no,
so
but
like, I
you
really
did
had
well.
to dumb it down for me to understand. So yeah, anyways, your cell is actually better at transforming diacetyl than it is at producing acetylactate. As long as you wait long enough, it's going to retake that diacetyl, get it into itself, and your beer's not going to be a diacetyl bomb. It's crazy that not more breweries are actually testing for this. And the test is actually really simple. Now, as brewers, you all have a mason jar. It's par for the course. When my teacher said that, I was like, yeah, everyone in this class has a mason jar at home somewhere. So you take that mason jar, take a sample of your beer, seal it back up, throw it into hot water, bring the temperature up a little bit, then take a whiff. If you smell diacetyl, then your beer is going to be diacetyl inside of a couple days if you cool crash it now. So don't cool crash it. It's not ready. It's not ready to be sent off. In an industry where time is money, I see how people want to cut corners, but this test is kind of key. You have to wait for your yeast to be done. If it's not done, the beer's not done. I mean, your job isn't done at that point. Your customer is going to open its can. It's going to be full of diacetyl, and it's going to say, oh, it's an off flavor. What's going on here? You know, like you guys are screwing me over.
Yeah.
If you just do that test first, you'll see that, oh, okay, well, let's wait 6 hours and try it again. No diacetyl, perfect. Cool crash it then.
Yeah. It's a big risk.
A lot of people work around schedules. You can't really work around schedules when you're brewing. It's actually the opposite. You're working around the beer's schedule because that's what you're doing. And again, as brewers, we're only making wort. The yeast is doing most of the work. Keep your yeast happy and your beer is going to be great.
Yeah.
That's all I have to say.
No,
Chris.
it all makes sense. Like nowadays, customers are more and more aware of what's going on because of just online content, like what we're doing, but also anything like Instagram, Twitter. You can learn a lot online about your beer and off flavors. Like back in the days, you might drink diacetyl and not really feel it or smell it. Just be like, hey, it tastes like butter, right? It must be
Oh yeah, I mean that's
normal, right?
That's the other thing is not everyone will have the same threshold for diacetyl. Everyone has kind of a different level where they're going to actually smell it. And just to clarify, diacetyl comes off as buttery popcorn, sometimes like theater butter, theater popcorn. So it's kind of in those areas. But some people are just kind of nose blind to it, which is completely normal. I'm not very sensitive to diacetyl. It takes me a lot. For me, yeah, exactly. It's not everyone. Some people in my class, really, really good. It's like they're going to smell it immediately and go, there's acetyl in this. For me, it's going to take longer or I'm just not going to get it. But it's normal. Everyone's built kind of differently. But Chris, is there any beer styles that the acetyl would be okay versus others?
Some British beers, actually. So bitters, stouts, Scottish ales are more keen to have some diacetyl in there, and it's acceptable. Not like a full bunch like a butter bomb, but it's still acceptable. But I want to point out the flavor part of that. Why do you taste more butter? Because it's an actual part of the butter ingredients. Like it's part of the lactic fermentation in butter that makes it taste like butter. Cool, right? That's the only science part I have. But after that, most beer styles like point out diacetyl as a fault, a problem in the beer. Like Max said, fermentation too fast, pull it out too fast, cold crash it, and then diacetyl shows up. But it can also be a sign of a lactic infection into your beer, if I'm not wrong.
Oh, it could be, yeah. There's a lot of like different reasons for it. It's just your most common one is actually just the yeast. But yeah, you could have an infection for sure.
But
so then it's just your job to figure out, was it an infection or is it my yeast?
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah.
But some traditional winemakers like Chardonnay in France, French Chardonnay are known for their butter bombs. So Chardonnays with a lot of diacetyl in flavors because that's what they are aiming for, and that's the flavor profile of the wine. So not a fault in this case. But if we take it head to head, the Czech Pilsner against the classic German lager, then for the Germans, it's a total big no into diacetyl in their beers. Yes, and for the Czech Pilsners, it's actually like tolerated because it's a lot more cleaner, and they know that they can't really make their way through with other ingredients because it's focused on the crispiness of the beer and the cereal flavors of it. Germans have a little bit more of a strict way to make their things happen.
And to go a little bit further in this, diacetyl's in every single beer. Same thing with DMS. It's those off flavors that are very difficult to get rid of, but in a lot of cases, you don't really get rid of them. You just kind of hide them. They're always there. You can try a lot of different tricks, a longer boil, or again, you just managing your yeast a little better, and you'll reduce a lot of it, and you'll probably eliminate most of it, but it's always there. It's always a concern in every single style, every single beer. That's why some styles it's acceptable, some styles it's not, and some brewers, like the German brewers, are very keen on a certain way their beer should taste like, and they're gonna do everything in their power to make sure it doesn't have those off flavors. To a point where if a batch does have those off flavors, they're gonna dump it. They're not gonna serve it. They're very particular about their beer, and I think it's a good philosophy to have towards every single beer. If you want a beer to be this, and it's not that, do something about it. Dump it, or change it completely, you know? There's always tricks, you know? Just put some bread on there. It's gonna change it completely. But don't sell it as a crappy product. And if it's not a good beer, it's not a good beer. Fucking dump it. But if it is, sorry, Dad, if it can be a good beer and you know you can do something about it, then do it.
Live up to it. And again, I think you stated perfectly. Time is the fifth ingredient in beer. Don't miss this ingredient.
I love saying that. Yeah. Time is a huge
right
ingredient that a lot of people forget. I mean, everyone talks about the other four, and even everyone talks about the other three, and sometimes only the other two. But they're all very important. They're all very connected, and got to make sure that they all work together.
On my end, I think
That's
it covers
all I
up
have to say
what.
for today.
Like diacetyl. It's I think it's something that I'll have to try out more, get a little bit more keen to know it, but also what's good and what's bad in diacetyl. Like there's a few misconceptions about that, and if you get a little bit of diacetyl, then ask yourself the right questions. And yeah, that's pretty much what I had to add, Max. The end word.
So I hope you like this video on off flavors. If you want to see more of those, and if there's some off flavors you're not sure about what they are, how they work, and you want to know more, well, let us know in the comments below, and we'll try to figure it out. I mean, I usually follow a little bit what we're doing in class, but if there's something I can research further out, I'll do it for sure.
Yeah, you kind of hooked me on the DMS thing. The DMS
We're
thing.
doing DMS?
Probably next week.
Yeah.
Why not?
It's another one that's another big one. DMS is another big one in beer that every beer has it. Sometimes you have a lot of it, sometimes you don't. Anyways, we're getting ahead of ourselves. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Shout out to Welly again. Just one more time.